Box of Delights by John Masefield. Chapter 1. A wandering showman dreads to hear Red Riding Hood's attackers near. As Kay was coming home from Christmas holidays after his first term at school, the train stopped at Musborough Station. An old man ringing a handbell went along the platform crying, "Musborough Junction, change for Tatchester and Newminster." Kay knew that he had to change trains there, with a wait of 40 minutes. He climbed down onto the platform in a bitter cold and stamped his feet to try and get warmth into them. The old man, ringing the handbell, cried, "All for Condicote and Tatchester, all for York Wardine and Newminster, go to number 5 platform by the subway." As the passengers set off towards the subway entrance, Kay put his finger in his pocket for his ticket. It was not there. "Did I drop it in the carriage?" he wondered. He went back to the carriage. "Stand back, master, please," a porter said. "We're going to shift the train." "Please, I think I've dropped my ticket in the carriage." "Oh, 1 minute then," the porter said, opening the door. "Which seat were you sitting at, master?" "Here," Kay said. He looked under the seat and in what he called the crink between the back and the seat, and there was no ticket there. "I don't seem to see it," the porter said. "Had you it when they punched tickets at Blunnerfun?" "Yes." "Well, you better explain at the subway. We've got to shunt this train." The train presently moved away. Kay went to the bench where he'd left his bag. He began to rummage through all of his pockets. He felt that the ticket collector who was watching him at the subway gate was beginning to think him a suspicious character. An Irish terrier came up to Kay, sniffed at him, and wagged the stump of his tail. "Good boy," Kate said. "Nice old boy, then," and rumpled his head for him, which made the dog bounce about with delight. Still, he could not find the ticket. 2 men who had been standing near the subway entrance, watching the people go out, moved up to the bench and sat down upon it. Kay had noticed them, for he had been told that detectives often stand near ticket collectors, watching for escaping murderers. He had thought, probably those are 2 men from the yard after somebody. Now he thought, supposing they arrest me for not having a ticket? "Well," one of the men said, "he's diddled us. He's simply not on the train. Here's the description sent. Travelling first class, in appearance like a French cavalry colonel, with waxed moustaches, very smart and upright. Height 5 feet 8, age about 40 to 45. He hopped off the train where it slowed down somewhere. Depend upon it." "We'd better telephone at once that he wasn't on the train." "Asses that we are," the other cried suddenly. "Oh, silly chumps and fatheads. Of course, he got under a seat in a first-class carriage and he's been shunted out and away. Quick, quick, we may get him yet in the shunting yard." "Of course, that's it," the other said. "Lively, then." At once the 2 men ran off, past the subway entrance and along the platform in the direction in which the train had gone. Now that the men were running, it seemed to Kay that some dogs, which he had not noticed before, were running with them. "They are Alsatian dogs," he thought, "but they seem thicker in the shoulder than most Alsatians." "Why, of course," he exclaimed. "They are police dogs, and they're going to be put on the scent. Oh, I do wish I knew what the criminal had done." As he watched, one of the men paused in his run to signal with his hand to the man on number 5 platform, who signalled back with a real pair of handcuffs, and then ran out of the station. "I say," Kay said to himself, "I've never been so near to detectives before. Oh, I do wish I could find this ticket." The Irish terrier was at his feet again, begging to have his head rumpled, which Kay did for him. Then he noticed that the owner of the dog was standing near him. He was a little old man in a worn grey overcoat. He had travelled there in the end coach of Kay's train. Since leaving the train, he had been at the platform end, securing a big case in a cover of green baize. This he now carried in his hand. "Ah, young master," the old man said, "I see that my Barney dog has made friends with you at first sight. That's the time that likings are made, and you are looking for your ticket, which, lo, is on the platform, dropped at your feet." "Why, so it is," Kay said, picking it up. "So it is. Thank you ever so much." You must have slipped it out as you rummaged, said the man. Kay noticed that the man had very bright eyes, alert as birds or squirrels. We must be moving along, young master, he said, or they'll be wondering if we've got no tickets. Could I give you a hand, please, to help you carry your case? Kay asked. He noticed that it was an awkward load for a little old man. No, I thank you, master, the old man said, but if you'd be so kind as to steady her while I swing her, then I could get her to my back, which is where she rides a triumph. Only I do date the pagan times, and age makes joints to creak, or doesn't it? I should think it does, Kay said. Now, I'm going to swing, the old man said, and keep it you, young master, from rolling me over, if you'll be so gracious. He swung his bundle up to his shoulder, and indeed, if Kay had not been there to steady it, the load might have pulled him over. He had a frail little old withered body, like the ghost of ninepence, as he said. Kay walked with him through the subway to number 5 platform, and there helped him to set down his bundle at a seat. After this, he went into the refreshment room and bought some biscuits for Barney, for which the old man was grateful. After this, as there was still half an hour to wait before the Condicote train came in, he tried to get to the shunting yard to find out if the detectives had caught the criminal and what it was that the criminal had done. He was not allowed inside the shunting yard. The young porter, who had headed him off at the gates, told him that no one was allowed in. Kay asked if the detectives had found a criminal under one of the seats. What? Just now? The porter asked. Yes, they got him. He was under one of the seats dressing up as a duchess. In another minute he'd have finished, so that not even the Prime Minister would have told the difference. What had he done? Kay asked. Done? The porter said. Oh, he was a bad one. He had a row with his father-in-law, and he got a big sharp knife and cut the poor old man up, put him through the mincer, and sold him to the dog's meat man. The dog's meat man wouldn't have noticed it, only one of the buttons stuck in the dog's throat, and the lady who owned the dog complained, and then it all came out, and it's thought it isn't the first man he put through the mincer. It's a habit that he's been growing on him for years. What will be done to him? Asked Kay. He'll get the rope, the porter said. Madame Two Swords are offering any money already for the mincer he did the deed with. I say, Kay said, couldn't you let me peep in and just see him where he is, with the detectives? Oh, they've gone a long while, the porter said. They'd a special car and went off at once to London with an armed guard. Kay was thrilled with the story, but as he walked back to the platform, he wondered whether the porter had been telling the truth. He bought a newspaper, but could find nothing at all about such a crime. While he was searching through the newspaper, the train came in. He got into a carriage and was soon on his way home. When he had been taken to school in September, he had gone by car. He was now returning home through a country quite new to him, by a railway line over which he had never before travelled. The train passed out of the meadows into a hilly land, beautiful with woodlands and glens. In spite of the bitter cold, Kay was much interested in the new country. Some of the hills had old camps on them. On the headlands there were old castles. In the glens there were churches that looked like forts. He took from his bag a cycling map of the countryside. By this he picked out the hills, castles and churches as the train went past them. Soon all the land to the left of the railway was a range of low wooden hills in the most strange shapes. He read the name on the map, Chester Hills. What a wonderful place, he said to himself. I do wish that I could come here to explore. While he was looking through the window at these hills, he heard a scratching at the door. He saw that the Irish terrier Barney was standing on his hind legs in the corridor, looking at him through the glass. He went to him, opened the door and patted him, and after a minute the dog went scuttering off down the train. I suppose, he said to himself, that the old man is in the train somewhere. I'd forgotten all about him and thinking about the murderer. The train drew up at the station. Hope under Chester's, he read. Then that little river is the Yog, and that is Chester's camp. It must be a Roman camp from the name, and that is Hope Cross. There must have been a battle there, for it's marked with the crossed swords, and the map shows a lake only a couple of miles away. He stared at the hills. It was a grim winter morning, threatening a gale. Something in the light, with its hard, sinister clearness, gave mystery and dread to those hills. They looked just the sort of hills, Kay said to himself, where you might come upon a dark tower and blow a horn at the gate for something to happen. The train was about to start, the whistle had blown, and the station master had waved his flag, when there came cries from the ticket office of, "Hold on, wait a minute." 2 men rushed off the platform and scrambled into Kay's carriage, just as the train moved on. The men took the further corner seats. They panted a little and looked at Kay. Both were in black clothes of theological students. "They didn't give us much time," one of them said. "The news has only just come through," the other said. Both were youngish men, about 23, Kay thought. Somehow he didn't like them, nor their voices. They made, in some foreign tongue, 1 or 2 remarks, which Kay judged to be about himself. After this, as the train went on, they spoke to him. One of them, who was a pale, eager-looking man, with foxy hair, said, "Going home for the holidays? Haha, what?" And when Kay said, "Yes, please, sir," the other said, "And very seasonable weather too. We're going to have snow, it seems, and no doubt you enjoy snowballing and tobogganing and making snowmen." Kay said that he did. He began to like this other man, who had a round, cosy, chubby face with fair hair, and yet there was something about him. Kay couldn't quite put it into words. He had kind of a sort of a... It was more in his eyes than anything else. "Are you going far, may I ask?" the chubby man said. "I'm going to Condicote," Kay said. "Ah, indeed. Condicote Junction," the chubby man said. "And I wonder if, in the Christmas holidays, you will ever do card tricks?" "If you please, sir, I do not know any." "But you are of a studious turn, I see. Haha, what, with your maps and food for the mind," the foxy man face said. "I wonder if I might try to teach you a simple trick, since we are to be fellow travellers." Kay said that it would be very kind, but that he was afraid that he would be stupid at it. "I see that you'll be very clever at it," the foxy man said. "Don't you think, Tristan, that he has the face of one certain to be clever at card tricks? What?" "The very face," the other said. "Just the facial angle and the Borromeo index," the foxy one went on. "Now, let me see if I have my cards. I usually carry cards because I am much alone, and I find the games of patience a great mental solace. Ah, yes, I have my old companions." He produced a little package of green-backed cards in a dull leather case. "Let nothing tempt you into playing cards with strangers in a train or ship anywhere," the chubby man said. "I am inclined to agree with you, Lancelot," the foxy man said, "but there will be no harm in showing him one of the tricks by which sharpers deceive the unwary. Let me show you the commonest trick. It is often known as spotting the lady." He dealt out 3 cards, one of which was the Queen of Clubs, and the other 2 low hearts. "See there," he said. "Mark them well. I will twist them and shift them. And lo, now, which is the lady?" "That one," Kay said. So it is, the man said. "What is it to have your young eyes, Gawain, is it not?" "It's not his young eyes, but your clumsy dealing," the other said. "Ha," the foxy-faced man said. "I lack practice, I see. I must give myself some incentive. I will now back my skill. Now then, prepare. If you beat me this time, you shall have 6pence, for indeed I must be put upon my mettle. Watch now the whirring cards. They shift, they lift, they dive. Twiddle, 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 pussycat and fiddlestrings. Can you tell the lady this time?" "Yes," Kay said. "Here she is." "And here is your 6pence, the man said. "And yet I thought I was discreet, but you have an eye like a lynx. Now, may I try once again? You are too young, you are too sharp. There is no getting round you. Now, no denial. If I beat you this time, you shall give me 1/2 crown for the poor box, or next Sunday's collection." Kay was about to protest, for he had promised never to bet, nor to play cards for money. But the chubby-faced man said, of course, that would simply be sportsman's honour. Agreed. Agreed what? The foxy-faced man said, as he twiddled the cards. Hark to Merlin. Again, the fatal sister spins her webs. Mark her well in hand, the hand of destiny, so shoot the weft across the serried warp, and back the sword beats and the sheer descends. Now, which is the lady? This one, Kay said. I saw her from underneath as the cards went down. He was quite certain that he had seen the queen, but when he lifted the card, it was not the queen, it was the 3 of hearts. Now, how did that happen? What? The foxy-faced man said. That'll be just half a crown, please, for the collection in aid of the decayed cellars, poor fellows. A debt of honour, you know. Kay felt very unhappy, but pulled out his purse and paid the half-crown. It may have been suspicious or error, yet it seemed to him that both men seemed very inquisitive, craning over, as it were, to see what money was in his purse. So you carry your money in a purse? The chubby-faced man said. Is it always a wise precaution? So much better than having it loose, where it will get pulled out with a handkerchief or what-not. The foxy-faced man spread his cards. Now, Sir Lancelot, he said, that is 2 to you and 1 to me. Won't you give me a chance to get equal? Kay thought he was already past being equal, and a good deal ahead. He was sorely perplexed as what to say. At that moment, however, the train began to slacken for the station. How, we stop here, what? The foxy-faced man said. So Dagonet, a word with you? He tapped his left ear and went out into the corridor. The chubby-faced man followed him. The train was at a little junction, Yarton for Yocombe Regis. 2 or 3 people left the train and others got in. I won't play cards any more, Kay decided. Nothing shall induce me. When the train started, the 2 men returned. Kay was again studying his map. He was afraid that the men would suggest more cards, but they'd returned deep in thought. They talked to each other in low voices in a tongue which Kay thought must be Italian. He glanced at them sideways from time to time. There was something in the way of their bending their heads together which seemed very sinister. Kay wondered that he had ever thought either of them nice. They were talking about somebody. They seemed to be looking out for somebody. Whenever the train stopped at one of the little stations, Gabbett's Cross, Lower Torrington, Stoke Dever and Radstow, the men went out into the corridor and seemed, as Kay has decided, to watch all people leaving the train. They had friends, accomplices Kay called them, in the train, for once at Radstow. As Kay was looking out for the landmarks of home, he saw the foxy-faced man who had got out onto the platform, signalling to a man in the forward carriage.